Hey, what's up, America? Greetings from Captain Metal. Hey, we're about to start, a neck build here. I got some beautiful red maple that I got from a friend of mine. I'm actually going to make a guitar in honor of him. He passed away, almost a year ago. Anyway, here, let me turn this thing around. Anyway, here's some of the wood. This is from red maple. I just ran this stuff through the planer and got it flat. And it's not too square, so I got to try to, get some square, boards out of this. And then I'm going to, glue them together and make kind of, a laminate. This would be, a laminate neck, and we'll make it, a one-piece construction so there won't be any scarf joint. So anyway, I'm going to finish prepping this wood, and I'm going to glue it together, and I'll be back with you. All right, now, before I glue these together, because this is how I'm going to have to glue these together, stacked like this. But I can't cut my neck out of that, like that. I'm going to have to turn this up on its end like this. And hold on a second. And then I'm going to have to cut my, my neck shape out of it after it's glued together like this. So what I'm going to try to do is I got to try to cut some, rectangular pieces. I got to get some, 3-inch wide by however long this is, rectangles, and then glue them together, because it's going to be, there's no way, once you glue that together, you're going to have this monstrosity that's going to be almost impossible to work with. So we need to start with something that's flat and square. So I can glue these together, like this, but I can't, cut the guitar shape out of that, because it'll warp on you. It's not, you've got to turn and have the grain going the other way. So remember that when you're building, now laminate neck is actually, stronger than, if you was to make it out of a solid one piece. Got less chance of warpage, and then once you put, your truss rod in it, you've got a strong neck. So anyway, I'm going to try to, extract a rectangular shape out of each one of these boards that's the same size, so that when I glue it together, I've got a square block to work with and not this, monstrous log. So, if you start with something that's not flat and not square, you're going to end up with something that's not flat and not square. So let me lay these out, and I'll be back with you. All right, I've laid them all out. Let's see, maybe, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I've drawn, I've marked a center line and then drawn out a rectangle. And I used, my neck template as kind of a guide. I don't really need it that big. So I made it, as wide as I need it tall. I made it as tall as I need it wide. So I'm just making a square. It's going to be a 3 3/8 square. I don't really need it to be that big on the side. You can see here's the side template right here. Let me lay this on this board over here so you can see. That's all I really need, on the side is this template right here. Zoom in here, move it in. So I got more than, I'm going to have more than I need on the side. There's where I've marked it at. So I'm cutting out a rectangular square that's, wide enough to make this neck. But when we glue these together, you know, after we cut them out, remember, after we glue them together, we're going to turn them sideways like this. Because it does matter which way the grain goes. So anyway, I'm going to cut these out on the bandsaw so that, you know, I'm going to get them as square as I can, and then, you know, we'll glue them together and use, you know, get one side as flat as we can, and then we'll, you know, run this block through the planer a couple of times and get it, you know, flat and square, and then we can start making our neck. All right, I've got them all, you know, cut out into some rectangular blanks, and some of them didn't, you know, quite clean up. So I got them as square as I could. Now we're going to glue these together, is the plan, maybe, like so. And then once they're glued together, you know, our shape is going to come from this way. Now this shape right here is going to come, you know, from down here. Get out of the way. This shape right here is going to be, you know, taken out. So you can see we really don't need, all of that wood. Now what if instead of gluing these blocks together and then trying to cut that shape out, this would actually be on the other side. You know, you would flip this over. And that's actually, you know, how this template works. Let's go together. The center line on that is that's just the center line on there. Right there, like that. So that's how that works. So it'd be like that. So what if instead of gluing all that together, we cut the shape out. Maybe we could cut that shape out of each one and then glue them together. Now, is that a good idea? I don't know. I've never done that before. You know, what would be the difference in gluing these all together and then cutting that shape out, or cutting that shape out and then gluing them together? The end result is the same thing. I'm thinking, you know, technically. Never done it that way. So why don't I clamp these together and then we can, you know, it looks like, you know, that end might be a better end to make the, you know, the headstock piece from. Why don't we try that? I'm going to clamp these all together. We'll lay it out and we'll see, you know, what material do we have to remove from the top? And what do we got to remove from the side? Here, I can see right there. Let me move this. And we should be able to be square, you know, thought I cut them off to the same length. So they should be pretty close. new clamps. Want to make sure I can. I've got room to draw on here, because I've already got, you know, an image traced out on one of them, so I can see where it should be. Grab another clamp. Now I can see, you know, it's going to be, it'd probably be better to use that end down there. But actually, you know, getting quite a bit of taken out. Like I said, it's actually coming from the other side. So I think I'll be all right. So yeah, if we cut this shape right here out like that, then we would have to flip it over and cut this shape out on this side right there to coincide with where the head's at. That's how you can see that. So we can cut, you know, we can saw quite a bit of wood out of the way with the saw, you know, before we even glue it together, and then we still have enough to finish it up on the router. So now I've never made a guitar neck this way. It's an idea I had, so you know what? I'm gonna try it on this. This will be a first for everybody. So I'm gonna lay these all out, and I'm gonna cut away, you know, most of it with the bandsaw before I even glue it together. That way, when I get to the finishing, you know, I don't have a lot to, you know, cut off of it. So anyway, let me take care of that, and I'll get back to you. All right, hope you can see me. We'll find out when I go back and view the footage. Anyway, I cut these out. I laid them all out, cut them out on the bandsaw, and I stayed, you know, away from the line, just a hair away from the line all the way around. That way I know these are still a little bit oversized. They're still, you know, the width of that marker and what little bit, so, you know, they right about maybe a 1/16 of an inch over, not much to work with. Anyway, so I cut them all out. Now I'm gonna glue them together. Like so. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to get the face here all lined up to where this is, you know, these are all in line. Now, once this is glued together, it'll be flat. And then we're going to, you know, now we're going to get our headstock, because so you see how much we got oversized. How much easier it was to cut all the material out of the way. Now, so I still don't know that this is a good way to make a neck. You know, this is the, you know, it's an idea I just had. So, you know, we're finding out. So, anyway, let me glue this stuff together, and then once it's, you know, dried enough, we'll lay out the other part, and we'll rough all that out, and then we'll finish it up in the neck routing fixture. The router, we'll see, you know, how it comes out. All right, I've got 2 of them clamped together. Now I'm not going to try to put glue on all 5 of them at one time. It's, you know, it'd be a nightmare. This glue sets up pretty quick. This is actually some pretty good glue. This is good old Elmer's. In fact, I'm gonna have to let those dry for a little bit, you know, before I attempt to put another one on. I'm trying to keep them as lined up as I possibly can, so I don't want them, you know, try to fight with 5 different piece is swishing around. So I'm just going to do one at a time. I want to give this every chance I can to come out. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is a good way to make a neck. Maybe somebody already makes necks like this, and I'm Johnny Come Lately. Anyway, good old Elmer's wood glue, man. This is the best. It actually sets up pretty quick. When you put those two pieces together and clamp it, it's almost impossible to move. So you better be right when you clamp it. Anyway, I'll be back with you once those are set. All right, I got all 5 of them glued together. I only had to wait about 15 minutes in between each piece. So I put those 2 together. After about 15 minutes, I was able to take the clamps off, glued that one, waited 15 minutes, glued that one. So I finally got the last one on. Now that's all I'm going to be able to do to this today. Now tomorrow, we'll unclamp it and then we'll try to square it up. I think I can I'll try running that across the planer and see if we can get the face flat and square with the sides. I can probably take my hand planer and bring the headstock flat. Then we can lay out the shape. Now this is a 57 to 60 Gibson Les Paul neck. Now this is for a set neck. Now I've already laid it out, for that, but I don't have to, make it a set neck. There's still enough on there, and I haven't cut anything yet. You see, we still got quite a bit of width there. So instead of cutting, it like that, I can just leave it. Now I'll have to calculate, but I can make it just a regular bolt-on neck style, end right there, so it fits right in. Now this neck is actually designed for, it's a 24 3/4 inch scale with 21 frets. It's it's a 57 to 60, Gibson Les Paul. So that's what the scale already is. So we'll stay with that. Whatever guitar I put it on, I just have to make sure it's got a 24 3/4 inch scale, and so I got 21 frets, which is really nice. It's a different feel than the Fender. I've got the Fender neck in there too. I'm going to make those style necks, which I'm going to make a bolt-on neck. Now if you want to order a guitar, you want a 58, or you want a 60. You just, they're all the same, same with 57 to 60, the same thing. And you want the set neck, I'll make you one, but for the most part, if you buy one of my guitars, if you buy, Captain Metal Guitar Workshop brand guitar, well, you're gonna get a bolt-on neck. So anyway, we'll come back tomorrow and we'll finish this. Alright, hope you can see me. Now take the clamps off, and I don't know. Like I said, this would be the same thing that I would have if I'd have glued all them together into a big block and then cut all of that out afterwards. Didn't do too bad cutting them out with the bandsaw. Didn't do that great either. They're not really that exact, but I bet if I was to take the template and run the router over with the template, they'd all be identical. Probably have a better result. Now I still got to cut some of this out. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to We'll try running this over the planer and see if I can get a flat surface here. And then if I can get that flat, then I'll set it up, and I can either plane that with my block plane. I might be able to stick it in the mill, clamp it in the vise and use a fly cutter. So anyway, well, let me go change my clothes and we're gonna try to run this over the planer, see if we can flatten that out and see if we can actually make, a good neck out of this, this craziness here. A kitty. I see you, girl. I'm sorry, little kitty. Kitty wants some petty pats. You're a good little girl, kid. No, I'm sorry, but wood chips all over me, girl. I really got to clean the shop. I got wood chips everywhere. All right, that actually worked. So I ran this over the planer, and then after that I took my block plane to it, put it in the vise over here, my block plane to it, then ran it over on the sander. I don't know, that's so it's square with the side edge. Wow, I can't get any better than that. I don't know if you can. You probably can't see that. Square and flat. All right, where's my? This thing's flat. Oh yeah, I mean, that's flatter than flat. You can't. If you can see that, you can see no light anywhere. All right, hey, we might make a good neck out of this yet. All right, what I've done is I've made, a paper template. I traced, this out. This is the routing fixture, the routing template. And you can see that line on there right there. That's, that's the bend line. That's right where it bends. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of trace this out on here so I can see where I need to cut it out. Now we're a little bit short down here, but it doesn't matter because we're not gonna use this style of end. I'm gonna make this a bolt-on neck, so we don't need a lot of that. But I'm not exactly for sure where to cut that yet. So what I'm doing is I'm just gonna lay it out like it is, and I'm gonna cut everything out except for that area there. I'm gonna make it the standard bolt-on neck pocket width, and not exactly for sure how long to cut it yet. So we'll just get it to width, and then we can cut the length in later. So anyway, I'm going to lay this out. Once I get this laid out, then we can put the truss rod slot in it. All right, I have the router set up. I've got my guide in place. This is my aerospace technology guide. These two C-clamps are holding it in place, and this one here just keeps this from bowing. It'll bow. It'll have a support behind it. Now I've measured the distance, and I've marked this out. I had to use the string, the pull string to mark the center, and it's 1 inch 5/31 from the edge to the center. Okay, from this edge to center. I don't know what it is from, I don't care. I got the same center distance from this edge all the way down. So from, you know, this edge right out here to the center. And that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be pushing this way using this guide. Now I've got the bit set at the depth it needs to be set at. Now most time you wouldn't cut it all in one, but this is not that deep. This is the truss rod that we're using right here. This is, you know, it's not that big of a truss rod. This is designed for, you know, Gibson, the Gibson 21 fret, you know. So it's going to go right there, and we're going to run this down there. Now I've marked center. See that black line? That marks center of the cutter. And I've marked it, you know, put a mark on here. And I've marked it all the way around so I can see where it's at. So when I'm pushing this along, you know, I can stop when I get the center. I know that's as far as I need to go. I don't need to go all the way through. Like I said, and that comes all the way down there. So when I put the fretboard's going to come down, you know. Well, we'll worry about that in a minute. Let me go ahead and cut this, you know, slot, and then I'll be right back with you. All right, we have the truss rod in, set down in there. So I'm gonna cut this shape out, and all right, well, I've got it rough cut out, just kind of saw cut it, you know, out on the bandsaw. I left it, you know, oversized, didn't cut it to the full, or didn't cut that tang on it like, you know, the Gibson has. I said I'm gonna make a, you know, a bolt-on neck, hopefully, you know. So anyway, I'm gonna take us over to the sander out there, and then we'll pretty it up some. And I still gotta, you know, put it in the neck jig, the neck radius jig, the neck profile, and see if we can get all that to come out. And I need to plane this. I'll just clamp it down in the middle, you know, like that, and I'll cut the back side of that head and blend the radius in. Hey, this might turn out to be, you know, a good neck. I said I don't know if it's a good way to make a neck or not, but we're trying it out. Alrighty, I've got the neck in the radius jig. This is the neck, not the radius jig. This is the neck contour. This is the back of the neck. It's got a handle right here. I turn this and it rocks this back and forth. And the router here, and it sets on top of this thing. Here, let me set this camera up. All right, now this is kind of noisy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on. I've got it where it's just now hitting, so I'm going to go back and forth with the router as I'm rotating this to get a cut all the way around, and then it's going to keep going down in depth until, now I've only got that much room I can go, because when I built this thing, I didn't really know how far down I should make this. So this needs to come up about a half an inch, these rails here. I could move the holes, because it looks like I got plenty of slot. I could re-drill the holes for the bearings a half inch higher, and that would raise everything up. I can't put a spacer on that because that'll change the center line. This works off of the center line, so you got to be on the center line. So anyway, let me start cutting on this little darling. Hold on just a second. Clamp this to the table here. Slide it around on it. All right, now that I'm done routing that, let's pull it out of here. I want you to see what it looks like when it comes right off the. So it needs some sand, a little sanding done to it. Nowhere near as much sanding as you would need to do, if you didn't do this. Now I used, the holes, the tuning peg holes, or the bolt, to hold it down, and I put a hole through here, and it, came right through the truss rod slot, so you won't see that. And somehow or another, I got to make, a bolt-on, piece. But anyway, you can see it's got the, the contour, and it puts this contour in. I need to adjust these pieces a little bit because it was eating into my head here, eating into my headstock. So I don't like that. But you really can't tell that, it was put together. I don't know if you can see that. Get up closer. You really can't tell that it was, glued together the way I glued it together. Now the head probably needs to be milled a little bit. So I need to put it, back in the mill and mill the thickness and blend it in. I'll have to take it up to the sander and blend it in. Let's see what we got here. Looks like 640, and it's supposed to be 590. That one's 580 or 680. I'll put my glasses on. Okay, that one, this piece right here. Well, I just, some of these are sticking up higher than others, so this one is, at 575. This one's at 560, which is okay. This one's at 650. So if I just bring these two down, or these three down to the level that is, I'll be at 560, which is still an okay size. And I'll bring it, as close as I can, and then I'll take it to the saw and blend it in. But so that's a success. Let's see what we got here. We got 670, 680. Starts to go up a little bit right there. Like I said, I need to adjust these little ramps right here. I need to make, a little bit different. This isn't quite right, but that's not critical. And this is close enough. Let's see what we got down here. Should be about 980. I think. Let me get my whee! These are the profile pieces that came with. So 790. Okay. Should be 790 down here on this end, and it is 760. Okay, where it's flat. 800, 790, 5. Okay, and up here, is where it's flat. 670. And what's it supposed to be? So 720. Right there, 680. I got 720 right there. And of course, it starts to go up a little bit. Now, I don't know how accurate these shims were down here either, because I just put these down here. I had to have something that's 230. Now my fretboard will probably be about 187 on the side, and it's going to have a slight, radius to it. So it'd be, about 220, 230 in the middle, just like that. But anyway, hey, not too bad, still not a scrap neck. As far as, I've got some boo-boos on it. But I'm going to see if I can, actually finish this up and make a good neck out of it. And that's a little off center, but other than that, wasn't that bad of an adventure. Like I said, it really looks, nice here on the back side. Let me sand it. Sometimes when you sand it, you can see the lines a little bit better. So, sand it. I don't think you'd really be able to tell, Now, I've never worked with this red maple before. I said I got it from a friend. He wanted me to make him a guitar. He didn't specifically say he wanted it made out of this red maple, but he gave me some of it so I could try to make, some guitar necks. And then he passed away, so I was planning on making a guitar in his honor using this red maple, but I'm not so sure this is a good wood to make a guitar out of. It's kind of crumbly. It's the same hardness as mahogany. What do I do with my sandpaper? So mahogany is about 950 on the Janka wood hardness scale. Well, I had a piece of sandpaper. Oh, it is. And this red maple is about the same thing, about $9.50. And their neck's normally made out of maple, but Gibson does make one of their Les Pauls, several of them, with a mahogany body and a mahogany neck. So we'll see, what happens once, I get a neck made out of this and let me get it finished up and get some oil on that. That's made to the specs here. So it's a hair wider than that. 2 inches 100. I'm not for sure where you measure. You got 2 inches 100 right there. Where does that profile end or start? There it counts. What about the other one? I need it. 6, 7, 6, 10. There it counts. 7, 10. Still a little bit oversized. So I need to modify, the cam there. So it looks like it came all the way down. Make sure my cam is centered. Looks like this side of the cam needs, to go down more. Alright, well, we're going to mess with that later. It's getting ready to rain. Wind's whipping up. But hey, all in all, I'd say, this method for building the neck, could probably work. Like I said, if I was to take those template pieces and use the router and route them out so that every one of them was identical, so you have a more, and then have a more accurate way. They'd all be the same size. The glue up would be, that's critical. Because none of these are at the same, should have been able to butt them all up against something and everything be in line. So I think if you could do that, you could make a neck like this. I don't know if this is, more work. Rust all over it from the sand earlier. Anyway, hey, we'll continue this journey and try to make a good neck out of this. I said I machine a little bit off of that, blend this together, clean that up some, and I said I might be able to, you see how the line's a little bit thicker over here. Still got, where that line is, needs to come off. I have to take that much off the side all the way down. It would bring, that size in what it's supposed to be and push center over that way a hair more. Awful lot of work to go through. But like I said, we'll see what we can do to try to make a good neck out of it. And like I said, I don't think that was a failure. This thing feels solid. All right, we'll continue this later.